Have you ever noticed something strange? Someone tells you, I'm not interested, and yes, it hurts. But when they don't answer your texts, they leave you on red, they stop calling, they pull away without explaining, somehow that hurts even more. And why? Why does silence sometimes hurt more than hearing the word no? It's because rejection gives your brain an ending. Being ignored gives it a mystery, though. And the human brain hates unfinished business. So, today I'm going to explain why being ignored creates an emotional pain that can last for weeks, months, or even years. And more importantly, how we can finally stop letting someone else's silence control your emotional well being. If you're interested in understanding the psychology behind relationships and healing from emotional pain, then consider subscribing now. Every week, I help people make sense of confusing relationship behaviors so they can stop suffering and start thriving. So imagine you're at work, you wave at a coworker, they look right through you, and they keep walking. Immediately, your mind starts racing. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad at me? Did I offend them? What happened? Now imagine instead they stop. Now imagine instead they stop and simply say hi. Now imagine they stop and simply say, "Hey, I'm running late. I can't talk." Not ideal. "Hey, I'm running late. I can't talk." Not ideal, but notice how much easier that feels. One gives your brain an explanation, the other leaves you trapped inside your own imagination. And that's exactly what happens in relationships. Someone doesn't text back, they slowly disappear, or they ghost you, or they emotionally check out while still being physically present. So suddenly, your mind begins writing stories, and unfortunately, your brain usually writes the worst possible story. Generally, we catastrophize. So, why the brain reacts this way? Psychologists have discovered that our brains are consistently or constantly trying to make sense of the world. When information is missing, the brain tends to fill in the blanks, usually with fear. This goes all the way back to survival. So, thousands of years ago, uncertainty could be very dangerous. Not knowing whether something was safe or dangerous wasn't just uncomfortable, it could be life threatening. So, your nervous system has evolved to pay close attention to uncertainty. So, being ignored creates uncertainty. Rejection creates certainty, but ironically, certainty, even painful certainty, is easier for the brain to process. So, being ignored doesn't just activate emotional pain. Research suggests that social exclusion activates many of the same brain regions that are involved in physical pain. That's why people often say, "It feels like my heart physically hurts." They're not imagining it. Your brain interprets social disconnection as a threat because for most of human history, being excluded from your tribe reduced your chances of survival. Your brain hasn't completely caught up to modern dating yet. Actually, if it still reacts as though social rejection could threaten your survival. Okay, the nervous system does not know the difference. Okay, now while why childhood makes this even worse. Cancel why childhood makes this worse. Cancel that. Here's where it becomes deeply personal. If you grew up with emotionally inconsistent parents, parents who were loving one day and emotionally unavailable the next, your nervous system learned an important lesson. Love is predictable, attention can disappear at any moment. Um, cancel, cancel. Here's where it becomes deeply personal. If you grew up with emotionally inconsistent parents, parents who were loving one day and emotionally unavailable the next, your nervous system has learned an important lesson that love is unpredictable, attention can disappear at any moment, and as adults, being ignored doesn't just remind you of today's relationship, it unconsciously reminds your nervous system of yesterday's wounds. That's why some people become obsessed after someone ghosts them. It's really about, rarely rather, about that one person. It's about every unanswered emotional need that came before them. So, this is where attachment styles become incredibly important. If you have an anxious attachment style, being ignored feels unbearable. You might overthink, you might double text, you might constantly check your phone or replay every conversation looking for what you did wrong. If you lean more towards being avoidant, you may tell yourself, you don't care. But underneath that emotional distance, many avoidant individuals are protecting themselves from the fear of needing someone who might not stay. They're different coping strategies, but reacting to the same fears. No one likes feeling emotionally invisible. Okay. Here's something that surprises many people. Being ignored often increases attraction. But why? Because uncertainty creates obsession. Our brains crave closure. Every unanswered question becomes another mental loop. It's similar to why unfinished songs get stuck in your head. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. So we tend to remember unfinished experiences better than completed ones. When someone disappears without explanation, your brain keeps trying to finish the story. Unfortunately, many people make that mistake. They make that. Unfortunately, many people mistake that obsession for love. But unfortunately, many people mistake that obsession for love. But they're not. But that's not the same thing. Sometimes you're not chasing the person; you're chasing the closure. One of the most influential psychologists in history, Carl Jung, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So think about that. Many people believe that they're simply attracted to emotionally unavailable people, but often they're unknowingly replaying emotional patterns that they learned long before they started dating. Once you become aware of that pattern, you gain the power to change it. So, what do we do? How do we break this? Okay, first, stop interpreting silence as information. Someone ignoring you doesn't automatically mean you're unworthy. It doesn't prove. First, stop interpreting silence as information. Someone ignoring you doesn't automatically mean you're unworthy. It doesn't prove you're unlovable. Often, it tells you far more about their emotional maturity than it does about your value. Second, practice tolerating uncertainty. You don't always need to have every answer. Sometimes closure is something you give yourself, not something another person needs to give you. Third, ask yourself a powerful question. What does the situation remind me of? Notice, I didn't ask, what does the situation make me think? I asked, what does it remind me of? Because emotional pain often comes from old memories, not just current events. And finally, choose relationships where communication is consistent. Healthy relationships do not leave you constantly guessing. They don't require a lot of detective work. They provide emotional safety, not emotional confusion. So, if someone is ignoring you right now, I want you to remember this. Being ignored hurts because your brain experiences uncertainty as a threat. Your nervous system wants answers. Your attachment system wants reassurance. And your heart wants connection. But someone else's silence is not a measure of your own worth. So sometimes the greatest act of self respect isn't getting someone to respond, it's deciding you no longer need them to. So, because healing begins the moment you stop chasing people who already have shown you that they aren't willing to meet you halfway. So, if this video has helped you understand why being ignored feels so emotionally painful, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been ignored by someone you cared about, and what did it teach you about yourself? So, if you're interested in understanding attachment styles, emotional availability, trauma, and the psychology behind healthy relationships, then consider subscribing now. and turn on notifications. And each week I'll give you new videos that if you're interested in understanding attachment styles, emotional availability, trauma, and the psychology behind healthy relationships, subscribe now and turn on notifications. New videos will appear every week to help you stop repeating painful relationship patterns and stop. If you're interested in understanding emotional If you're interested in understanding attachment styles, emotional availability, trauma, and the psychology behind healthy relationships, subscribe and turn on your notifications. New videos every week will help you understand painful. If you're interested in understanding attachment styles, emotional availability, trauma, and the psychology behind healthy relationships, subscribe and turn on notifications. New videos every week will help you stop repeating the painful relationship patterns and stop building. If you're interested in if you're interested in understanding attachment If you're interested in understanding attachment styles, emotional availability, trauma, and the psychology behind healthy relationships, subscribe and turn on your notifications. New videos every week will help you stop repeating painful relationship patterns and start building the secure, fulfilling connections that you deserve. And remember, the goal isn't to make someone Remember, the goal isn't to make someone choose you. The goal is to choose relationships where you never have to question whether you're valued in the first place. I'll see you in the next video.